So,
This second part of this, I'm going to call it the story that Mark and I are doing. It is being recorded on Sunday afternoon on June the 19th, 2005, and I'm going to talk just a little bit more about my parents and their families. And I wanted to just hold up a little book of genealogy. My father was so interested in keeping in touch with his own siblings and family. We began having family reunions, and he suggested that I try writing a book, and I'm holding in my hand now a copy of a small genealogy book that I did. I see it was done in 1960, and it has his brothers and sisters and at that time their addresses and their children and a little about them and just a tiny bit of family history. That was, as I said, 1960. Later, I had a first cousin, Nora Austin Green, who did a very authentic, detailed genealogy book. She did this in 1991. As you see, it is a large book, and she collected her data from cemeteries, from courthouses, and it tells about these 13 characters, something about each one, and there are available copies of this book, although she and her husband both now are deceased. Her husband at one time was my school principal. And that leads me to tell you a little about my own education. As I began, I told you I attended the rural school of Poplar Grove. After 2 years there, it was time for Ella, my older sister, and brother Louis to go to higher grades, and they were going to Boone School, which was almost 2.5 miles away. It was over 2 miles, and I was dropped out of Poplar Grove and began going to Boone School. One thing that I remember especially about walking to school was we did not know what a snow day was. A snow day was another day just like a sunny day for school. And my brother would go first and kind of break the path in the snow. Then would go Ella, and then would go Daisy. And we did that. That stands out in my mind. We also, we walked along on or near Tweetsy's railroad tracks. Tweetsy then was really a train that traveled between Boone and Johnson City, Tennessee. Most of its purpose was to carry cargo, but it did have a passenger coach. So, of course, that was used for people, and of course I had the privilege as a teenager with Alfred to ride there one Sunday. But anyway, back to school, elementary school, I had some outstanding teachers. I thought I was attending as a student the school where my sister was a teacher. Ella was a teacher. See, as I told you, my parents did not have opportunity of education, but it made them all the more reason that their children be educated. So Ella taught in the Boone schools for 40 years. I think I've mentioned that before, but she was an outstanding teacher. Lula taught in the rural schools, and when I was a little girl, she let me go to school just to visit with her. Of course, the boys did not choose teaching, but my older brother Collis, he did extremely well. And I'm saying this to say that by recording these experiences, I want to emphasize the fact that I was not the most outstanding member of the 6 children. We were just brothers and sisters as individuals. Each of us were individuals, but very really, I mean, loving and caring of each other, because when Lula was teaching, I can remember that with some of her teaching money that she bought me a hat. I remember that specific thing that she bought for me. I remember when Lula became engaged to Mary, I came in from the field, and Mother and Ella and Lula were sitting there. They were crying. And I said, "What? What's wrong?" And they said, "Well, Lula's getting married. She's going to be leaving home." And of course, she married a wonderful person, and she and Russell Henson has had an outstanding family, and she's the one now that is almost 99 years old. Ella married while teaching. She became engaged to Ralph Bashirs, and he was a lieutenant in the Navy, and she went away to be with him in Miami some and other places for short times. And sometime in my teaching career, I may refer to her being away from her teaching for a short time. Ned was the youngest of the six, and he says that he was kind of petted, but he was very special to all of us, and to Mother and Daddy, being their youngest child. And Ned was very interested in drama. Of course, he was a soldier, and he was in World War II, and was a prisoner of the Germans. He was a prisoner for a month, and we were unfortunate to get the message that he was a prisoner of war. That came from the United States government, and my husband and sister and husband had the unpleasant chore of telling our parents that we'd received a wire that Ned was a prisoner of the Germans. And for a month, that was a very hard family time. But he was released at the end of the war. He was just a prisoner 1 month, and the war ended. Ned then went to drama school. He was played the role of the first Daniel Boone in Horn in the West, which I was at last night, and I was not at the whole play last night. And of course, Ned is in poor health now and could not be to any part of it. But anyway, he also went to New York and studied school and was in some plays in New York. Then they lived in Colorado and Denver, and he had his own TV show. So I'm just telling you about my experiences and some of those of my family. And as I say, Carlos was a very successful businessman in trucking. So I've mentioned Lula teaching, Ella teaching, Carlos. Louis had a wonderful career. I've mentioned as a builder and working on military air bases, and then Ned and I. So now I'll tell a little about my own personal education. I had some outstanding elementary school teachers. One was Mr. John Howell, and Mr. John Howell's wife was, before they were married, he was my teacher before he and Irene were married, and Irene had been my sister's roommate in what they called a teacherage. Then Boone had a place that they called a teacherage. Ella was teaching, and she was a roommate, and when I finished college in 1939, I wish I had some time to tell, but college was more or less routine, because then it was not a university, it was just Appalachian State Teachers College, and they had some outstanding teachers, and they had an outstanding program to prepare teachers, because as a senior, for a whole quarter, you went to a classroom in the elementary school. I particularly went to a fifth grade, and I had Mr. Reynolds as we called them critic teachers, and they had an observation room. For a while, you would observe that a master teacher, and then you would go into the room and help the teacher. And then Mr. Reynolds, he was required to go to the college to teach a college class, and part of that 3 months he left me in charge of the whole classroom sometimes, and that gave me an outstanding experience, because I can remember some of those students who, some of the girls especially, who helped me. They realized that I was just a student teacher, but I could call you their names now, like Rachel and all that helped me, and that was a wonderful teaching experience. When the year that I finished college, which was 1939, the Howells said that they would like to go to the World's Fair, and so they hired a man who had a service station in Boone, and he was a real good driver. So they hired Mr. Ray Brindle to drive Mr. Howell's car. Mr. and Mrs. Howell got in that car. Ella and Daisy Austin got into that car, and we go to New York City to the World's Fair. And that was a highlight for me, just as a college student, just to go to the World's Fair. So then, in the meantime, I was wanting to get a teaching job, because Alfred and I'll tell you about our meeting and our plans, but I was wanting a teaching job. So soon after the World's Fair, I got this position in another county, which is 100 miles away, and I'd never even lived 100 miles from Boone. But Alfred and my sister took me one Sunday afternoon down to an area not too far from Gastonia into Gaston County, and I became a teacher of a two-teacher school. I taught the 4th through the 7th grade. I followed a man that had taught in that school 13 years, and I look back and think how silly I was to take that job, but that was my first job offer. And the principal of the whole district was a graduate of Appalachian State Teachers College, and he was willing to hire most anyone from ASU as a teacher, and he needed a teacher for this Kaiser school. So I go down to Kaiser School, and I had nowhere to live except a lady in the community kept 4 ladies as teachers. We called it a little teacherage. 3 of them were high school, and I went out to this little rural high school. This lady would pick me up and take me to the Kaiser School. I taught there for 1 year. Then it was consolidated into a larger school, and I came to the larger school from Kaiser to Tryon, Tryon, Tryon School, but it was still in Gaston County, and I taught there 1 year. Well, by then I had earned enough money to buy wedding clothes and to help buy things for for Alfred and me to be married, and that was my first teaching experiences were away from home, those 2 years. Then when I came back home, we were married. I'll tell that another time, but if it's okay, I'll tell about my teaching. I came back home and didn't think I would teach, because Alfred was working, and we began living in Tennessee near Mountain City, and he had a good job there, and Alfred also, and had done this during his lifetime. He and his mother had lived together. His mother was widowed, and he and his mother and brother part-time and his sister had lived together. So he and his mother were living at near Mountain City, and I moved in with Alfred and his mother, and I thought I would get a school in Tennessee. But you see, this now is, remember, the 30s was the Depression. This was just the early 40s, and school, no jobs were very much available. So I decided, and with his consultation, after talking about it and with them, I decided to get a school and see about Watauga County. So I got this school, what had been a two-teacher school in Watauga County, called school called Cool, C-O-O-L, Cool Springs, and it is near Banner Elk. And of course at Banner Elk is Lees McRae's College. But I got this position, and I took it, and the teacher before me had that been just one of her, and she had reason to stop teaching, and that left, I think I've counted pictures I have of them, 30-some people. But I took that job, being the teacher at Cool Springs School. So on Monday morning, Alfred would bring me to my brother-in-law's at near Vilas, and I would ride with him, and the person that taught with him, her name was Alice Farthing. I would ride with them part of the way to Cool Springs School. Then I would get out of his car and walk up this mountain road on Monday morning to Cool Springs School. And then when all this was planned, in the afternoon I would go over where I was boarding. You called it boarding, and that was with Mr. and Mrs. Jim Michael. I would stay with them Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night until Thursday night. Friday afternoon, I would not go back to their house. Instead, I would walk down off that mountain, down to Highway 194, which leads from Banner Elk down to Vilas, and it intersects with the other roads, 421 and others. But I'd walk down there and get with a teacher from Banner Elk and ride down to Vilas, and Alfred would come from Tennessee and pick me up, and I would go to Tennessee and spend the weekend. And I did that for 1.5 years. I stopped at Christmas time because I was expecting my first child, which was Austin Adams. And back then they did not like for you to teach pregnant. They did not like your appearance. Now I said some of that is my interpretation, but there was sort of a general understanding that you did not. Anyway, I asked that they get a replacement for me at Christmas, which only lacked a few months, because you see, then I think the schools were 8 months. That we used to just have 8 months school, and then we got to be 9. And so I better not start quoting figures. But let's go on about my teaching. That was my first Watauga teaching. Then I came, and then was when Ella was getting married. So Austin arrived, and all, and Ella got married, and that left she wanted someone to finish her school. She was going to Miami to be with Uncle Ralph in the Navy. So she said, ask for permission for me to finish her school year, and they let me. And the principal was Mr. Hale, and he had gone from teacher to principal. So I taught that year, and then they taught. They hired me to teach a different grade. She came back, and he went on a Navy ship. Uncle Ralph did. He was in charge of a ship, and he went off, and that made Aunt Ella come back home to Boone, and so I was hired to teach a 5th grade in the school where I had gone, where I had been a student, and where my teacher had been had become principal. So there I had the experience of 2 years being principal. My teacher being my principal at Boone. It was called Boone Demonstration School because, you see, at that time, they were called demonstration because they were demonstrating to the college students how to teach. I've referred to that. So I taught there a couple of years. Again, this I think shows that I wanted to be a mother. I really wanted a family. Alfred and I wanted children. So then I became pregnant and was pregnant with Sam. I stayed out of school a while, and then I decided then that we needed two incomes, because we had built a home and we had bought some property and things like that. So I got whatever was available. I took a school which was called Howard's Creek, and I taught at Howard's Creek, and then Howard's Creek was consolidated with Green Valley, and it took those 5 schools. This is kind of a story. There could be written a story of education in Watauga, which some teachers did, and 5 schools were consolidated to make Green Valley School, and so I became a teacher at Green Valley School, and I taught from the day it opened for 20 consecutive years, and then I had a reason to after those 20 years, I had an opportunity or a reason, an opportunity to go with a program out of ASU, and it was called Teacher Corps, and Dr. Larry Woodrow was in charge of this, of 12 college students who went out to a school and went into individual classrooms, and those college students were full-time in those classrooms. Well, the program he had written, it was what was very prevalent then, and it still is. It was a government grant, and they had money for what they called a community coordinator. So I became a community coordinator, and in that particular, I began with those 12 college students and that school, Mabel School, and I was a person who brought in a resource person, like the postman and different people to classrooms, and then I was had the really it was a privilege to take children on field trips, and we would go to field trips because we could do that, and I did that until that program ended, and I still was not exactly ready to retire, so the superintendent of Watauga County Schools asked me if I would just be a county coordinator, and my last few years of work was visiting different schools and being a resource person to bring people in. Like I would get professors from the university to go into classrooms and do demonstrations, well, I can remember one was person who was teaching gun safety, and he was a member of the gun club, and he was teaching these 7th or 8th graders that, and I would bring resource people into the schools, and those were the last years of my teaching, and I retired then in the 1970s for good. But I enjoyed being a school teacher, and I like to go to even within the last couple of years, I've gone to class reunions of 7th children who were 8th graders at Green Valley. They would have their own Green Valley School reunions, and for many, many years now, we have had high school class reunions, and I have chosen to help coordinate those. And we began we graduated in 1935 from Boone High School, and after we'd been graduated 30 years, we had our first class reunion. And then there were 60 some of us, and last year, the year 2004, we had our class reunion. We began 5 years apart, and then we got down to every year. And then last year, we had about 10 people, 10 or 12, because now we had a kind of an outstanding class in Boone High School, because one of our members became a sheriff of Watauga County, and he was the sheriff for 17 years. we had a member who became a doctor, and he went to Seattle, Washington, and had his own medical clinic. And then we had a son of a lawyer who practiced, and we had some outstanding members. We have people who've gone to to Florida and had careers in Florida. We have a man who had a good career in Washington, D.C., in government in Washington, D.C. But last week we had our 2005 class reunion. Of those 60-some people, we only had 3 class members because during the calendar year we had lost 4 class members. Of course, with us last week was members of a different one's family. We had 12 people, but they were sons or we have one teacher living. Oh, yeah. And Mr. Shipley and Mrs. Shipley was with us for lunch and for our class reunion. So that's about it about my education and my teaching.
Could I
Yes.
trouble you just to tell me a little bit about how you taught so many children and how the logistics of teaching that many children in the schoolhouse and that type of thing?
To answer Mark's question about how did you teach so many children, I don't know hardly how to answer it. I wonder, I just wonder how well I actually did. It was more, I had a lot of peer teaching. Now that was not exactly what it was, except, you see, there would be 7 grades. I mean, if there was a family in that community that had a child in grade 1, 3, 5, or 7, I was required and chose and wanted to get state textbooks for those children, and did. And they would, we had a schedule just like the regular, like Boone Elementary School would have. We worked on the same monthly schedule. I turned in reports to the principals, when I was teaching at Howard's Creek, I would turn in a report to a principal of Boone, of attendance, of probably grades. Just recently I've found grade books where I had children's recorded grades. And while I would be teaching first graders, lots of times we would have a certain area in the room that we called we have a long bench, just like church benches kind of, that we would have, we'd call it recitation bench, and the first graders would come up there, and the other children would be seated in places in different areas of the room. And while you were teaching them, the others would be preparing their history lesson or their math lesson, and then those first graders go back, and then you'd have a math lesson of some certain grade. Sometimes you could combine. And then, as I say, then after those, some of those fifth graders had finished their work, they could help those first or second graders with their reading. And we were encouraged and, of course, wanted to emphasize the basics, reading and writing, arithmetic, especially reading. Sure. And we did that. But, some of my happiest teaching days were those one-teacher schools, because we became like a big family. I know that I had one family that there were 4 people from, 3 boys and a girl, and they would have to, I would hire one of those boys to come early in the morning and build a fire in a big pot-bellied stove. with wood, build a fire with wood, and that would heat that. And of course we had that second room that had been empty, and we could use that for storage. And we even had, we had to go to a neighbor's house and carry water. So we'd carry water from Mrs. Brown's, and we had a water bucket and a pitcher, and everybody brought their water cup. And then everybody brought their lunch. And then I would go to Boone High School. Dr. Way, who was principal of Boone High School, would give me surplus, lunchroom surplus things, like soups and different things. And I'd take them, and we could warm that on that pot-bellied stove.
Sure.
And there would be times that we would supplement their lunch with that. And then you'll hear old mountain stories about children sometimes would bring cornbread and milk, and Miss Brown would let the children put their cornbread and milk in that their spring trough area. And in recent years, it's been 3 to 5 years now, we have had a reunion of Howards Creek school children, and the schoolhouse is now a dwelling, and the man who bought it and made it into his dwelling, he opened it up for that day to let us go in there. We had the meeting really in the fellowship hall or the gymnasium of Howards Creek Church, and that's where we had the general meeting and the food and all for the Howards Creek School reunion. But he let us go and see how that he had utilized that school building for a private home. And now, in the last few weeks, I have seen the building. It's been repainted outside and different things, but it's still that original school, that one teacher school building.
It's just amazing.
So, and at this reunion, we did crafts at that Howards Creek School. We took walnuts and made buttons out of walnuts. And one of the boys to the reunion brought me some wooden earrings he had made and something else out of wood. And I had some walnut buttons, and we shared those, and some of them had kept those.
Wow.
And so my teaching career was wonderful. But you see, I did it with 3 sons and a husband at home.
Sure.
But I never complained about my salary, because while I was teaching, a Shadowline lingerie plant was built near the house that we built. I wish I had time to tell about the homes we built. The first one was a little 5-room house, and there were 5 of us with Grandma Adams and, well, all of it in the house. Then we built another house, which was a brick house, and it was near Shadowline. And I could go to school. I could come home from having taught school, and while some of those parents were still working at Shadowline, and they would go home to children that I had taught. Their manufacturing day of lingerie, they were manufacturing Shadowline lingerie. Their day working there in that industrial plant was longer than my day of teaching, and I'm sure that I received more than salary than they received salary. So that's a kind of a long story about one teacher school or teaching.
No, that's good. That's good.
But
just real quickly, if you could just tell me, you mentioned how long your days were. How long was a school day? From what time to what time was there? How long from
like from 8:30 until 3, something like that.
Okay. And would you have a recess and a lunch
Yes.
hour?
Well, yes, we did. And we would when we had just the one teacher, we could plan our own. But we had a schedule, but they'd bring their lunch. But at Green Valley, we had an outstanding lunchroom. And at Green Valley, we had in the lunchroom, we had a stage, and we'd do plays and things like that. But that was a full elementary school. Now they have a beautiful new building. let's see, I've told about teaching now and my own education. What?
Do you want to go back to kind of your high school years and maybe when you met Pawpaw and that type thing?
Okay.
What do you think?
Yes, I do. I will go back to high school then. Boone High School did not have their own buildings when I began in high school. I, of course, began and finished in 1935. We met in college buildings. We met in the Watauga Academy. I mentioned that early. That was one of the first buildings on the campus of, the school began as an academy. Well, we had, that was turned as they grew and built other buildings, brick buildings. That wooden building was used as Boone High School, and we used part of one of their buildings called the Science Building. We used that for our library and science room and part of that. And we even had some high school classes in the 30s, from 31 to 35. We had we met in the basement of a girls' dormitory, and I can remember that our class of 1935, we organized an honor society. So we organized the National Honor Society in the basement of Lovell Hall, which was a girls' dormitory. And it pleased me so recently, my grandson, Sammy Austin Adams, he was inducted into the National Honor Society.
Wow.
And of course, it would have been in existence, of course, before the 30s. I feel sure, but we had an interesting class. Now, in high school, as I said, I was rather active. I was on the girls' softball team, and we'd go to different schools to play. And I was on the debating team, and that's when I went to Cove Creek to debate. And that's when I met Alfred, and that's sort of my love story. And we.
You can wait till the phone finishes if you want.
Okay, now that the background noise is different.
Do you want to get that? Do you need to get that? I'm going to put this on pause real quick.
Okay. I've been telling Mark about high school and the, being on the debating team, and our team was scheduled to go to bait the team at Cove Creek School, and I'd already met Alfred's sister, and I knew her, and we went on a Monday morning, and I can remember standing in the hallway beside of a old-timey steam or whatever kind of heat it was, radiator, and there I was talking with his sister and some other people. She was introducing me and some of the other team members, and this young boy comes up, and she said, "Oh, this is my brother, Alfred Adams." Well, we talked a little, and soon it became, of course, that wasn't long before the debate began, and of course I had to be on the stage, and I was sitting on the stage debating, and we were debating about sales tax. It was about putting sales tax on tobacco. Anyway, I can't go into that. I won't get through my acquaintance story. But I can remember after meeting Alfred, I can remember being on the stage, and I remember where he went and sat, and I can see it now, where he sat back in the corner of the auditorium. And so we just went ahead and finished the debate, and I don't remember all the details then, but he was also a cousin to one of my high school friends. Her name was Susie Bell, and we may have talked again before he left. He may have come around and spoken to me, but then he began and this sounds like, like some of the dramas that are written, but it repeatedly said that, that it was love at first sight, that, and he remembered what I was wearing, and I even have a piece of the clothing that I was wearing now, and so he began asking me for dates. But to see, Alfred was 5 years older than me. I was not 16 then, but he asked me for dates, but I had never dated. I mean, and anyway, I have lots of love letters that we wrote later because it was a long debating. See, I'm getting a little emotional or something, and I said the wrong word. It was a long courtship. I wanted to go to college. My parents wanted me to go to college. I really did want to be a teacher. Alfred wanted us to date and marry after a year or two, but we had an understanding that in the meantime, his parents moved, his mother, a widow, moved him and his sister to Mars Hill for them to go to college. And that was very admirable of her. Mrs. Adams, his mother, was one of Watauga County's most educated women of her time. She told about how she packed her trunk and how she went to Greensboro or somewhere to a college. And she was very ambitious. She wanted to learn things. She seemed to seek knowledge. She had bird books. She had flower books. She read. They had modern things. She married Alfred's father, who was much older than she, and he was a special friend of Dr. Daugherty's, the founder of ASU, and they used to go to Raleigh together. His name was Tarleton Adams, T.P. Adams, and unfortunately, see, I never did meet Alfred's father because Alfred's father died when he was 10 years old, and Alfred actually dropped out of school, high school, for a year or maybe a little more. He dropped out of school and to help his mother on the farm. His mother was ambitious in many ways. She had a chicken farm and she made money with the chicken. She had cattle, but they had bank stock, and her husband had bank stock, and her husband was interested in education. He was a member of the board of trustees of Appalachian State Teachers College when it was begun. As I say, he was a friend of Dr. Daugherty's, and his picture hung in the auditorium or in one of the buildings on the college campus. Dr. Daugherty had that to happen because Tarleton Adams was his special friend, and Dr. Daugherty used to go to their home and spend the night. Alfred said he would remember riding a horse, and he would have to put the horse in the barn and feed him for Dr. Daugherty. And then, then when Alfred became a banker, Dr. Daugherty at one time was president of Northwestern Bank. And there his father and them had been personal friends, and yet Dr. Daugherty was retired and inactive and even in poor health. But he would call Alfred pick him up and drive him. Once he picked him up to drive him one afternoon to Green Park Inn, and he went into the lobby and he says, "Do you have any celebrities registered here?" And they told him yes, and they had an artist. And he says, "Would you ask him to come down? I'd like to talk with him." And Dr. Daugherty was that outgoing in certain ways, but you see, he built. He and his brother married and had 2 children, but Dr. Daugherty never did marry. He had a girlfriend in Caldwell County, and they said, "Why didn't you marry?" He says, "Well, she said it was so cold up in them mountains." So Dr. Daugherty didn't, but I think that is interesting that there was a father-son relationship, and now, but what I want to especially tell about our courtship was that, of course, Alfred didn't have a car, and when we began dating, and he would walk from home, which was Silverstone, to Winkers Creek, and it was more than 10 miles. And we would have a date on, like, Saturday afternoon, and he would come on Saturday afternoon, and he would stay until, maybe 9 o'clock or something. And then maybe he would go back, and sometimes he would spend the night with my cousin, Henry Austin. They became friends, and we would double date some. Alfred and I would double date with Henry and Christine, and he would spend the night with them, and then we'd be together on Sunday. And then what we did this really should not have happened, his walking. Sometimes on Sunday afternoon we would walk to Poplar Grove Church. And instead of going on home from the church, he would walk back to Winkers Creek with me a lot. Now that did not happen much. But that I can look back and just think that was very, very endearing to me, to think that he cared enough for us to be together, and it meant that much to me and to him. And when he was away, he went away not only to college, but he went away to Ohio to work in the steel mills, and we used to write letters every day to each other. And I have boxes of letters, and I have a poem that he wrote when I was 16. It was at my 16th birthday, and might let you read that.
That'd be nice.
And and he and my sister Ella, she be teaching. He and Ella took me to my first job. See, when I went away to Gaston County, it was, like I say, over 100 miles. They took me in her car to there, and then I'd ride the bus home, and had different ways to come home for visits and being home. I'd come home instead of him coming down there. I would come back to Boone for us to see each other. And then we had a home wedding, and just recently, it was May the 24th of 1941, 39-40. May the 24th, 1941, we were married, and we celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. And I recently, the pictures you've seen and we're going to work with, I have wedding pictures of our marriage, and it was at my house. And of course the house, we had a dining room and a living room, and between that was kind of it was not an arch, but I kind of made it into an arch. I went out and gathered locust blooms that hang down, and I hung them down to make kind of an arch. And for the ceremony, we had the pastor of Poplar Grove Church to perform our ceremony, and Martha Hogson played the piano, and Ned sang "I Love You Truly" and "Ah, Sweet Mystery of Life," and one other traditional marriage song. And back from the kitchen into the dining room came Alfred and the minister, and I came in, just walked alone in from the hall through the living room, and we stood under that kind of arch for our marriage. And then for the reception, we had a picnic outside, and I've called my sister back on May the 24th to remind her how she had fixed such a good lunch for refreshments and all for our wedding. And I have pictures of that. And I have nieces and nephews that were real small, and that they were at our wedding reception.
How many people? Tell me about the attendees.
Well, there would have been 30,
Okay.
somewhere like that, because it was my brothers and sisters were invited, and them and their families that could attend,
Sure.
and their husbands. That was there. Then you see, we had our 50th wedding anniversary, and you were a big part of that.
I was there.
And we have good pictures of that.
That's true.
And one fun thing about that, Alfred said, now Daisy, Jackie was one that insisted we have the celebration, and then Mary and the other members of the family, daughter-in-laws and everybody, and I had friends to help with the reception. And Alfred says, I want to buy you a new dress for your 50th wedding anniversary, but says, I will not pay for the gas that you'll buy traveling around looking for it. And he was right. I went to North Wilkesboro and to different places, and I bought the dress, which is now hanging in the closet. I bought it at the Belk's, in the mall, which the most prominent store in the mall at North Wilkesboro was Belk's. Is that right?
That's correct.
But a relative of mine, Mark Payne's wife, had a little dress shop, and I bought my wedding dress from her. And then she and her husband and her brother and his wife came to our 50th wedding anniversary, which was on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon in the Fellowship Hall of First Baptist Church. And I had friends that helped me plan it, and I had a friend that he remembered, one of my friend's husbands remembered last year, not this May the 24th, but last year, he remembered when the locusts bloomed. He says, do you remember that he had gone out and gathered locusts? And my neighbor, Mary Ann Lawrence, that lives back just from the back porch, she had arranged that locust, and that's what's on the mantle of the church in the fellowship. That, along with other azalea and other native flowers that we'd had at the original wedding.
Sure. Oh, that's amazing.
And instead of Ned singing at the 50th wedding anniversary, his son sang one or two of the same songs.
That's a great day.
So
Well, look at
that's why now I've been so lonely with him gone, because we had such a long married life and so much family oriented life together. The three boys, as I said, Austin came along, and then 3 years later Sam came. 2 years later was Tom, and they worked too. They really did work. They once we talked of having a recording session similar to this. Alfred and I wanted to tell the boys how things used to be in the olden days, and it turned out telling them about their childhood. And they told how that they did work. One thing they did was the North Carolina Forestry Department bought pine cones for seedlings, and they gathered. We lived then with pine trees all around our house, and they gathered pine cones and sold them.
Oh, wow.
And then we had a garden, and they laughed and told about how we had a little plow, and it really happened. Two of the boys pulled the plow, and Austin held the handles and plowed between the rows of those beans and corn and all in that garden, which is now where Chatelaine Mall is. It's in that same general area. Because and you see, the boys stayed at home and went to college. And that was for different reasons, and I don't know why. I don't know if they insist. I wish I could tell on this tape about I wish I knew in my mind if they actually wanted to go away to college or if they were satisfied to go here. Apparently they were satisfied, or your dad would not have gone here and gotten his master's degree.
That's true.
Instead of when they graduated, I don't know, they always kidded that they, about different things, that maybe they had wanted to have a better car than another one, or wanted to have a better bike than the other one. But by them staying at home, we were able for each boy at some time, I think, to have a car, because there was a time when there were 5 of us and we had 5 cars.
Wow.
And we lived there up on the top of the hill, as I say, where the mall is now, and it had beautiful winding driveway up it, and it would get real snowy, but we had such fun times. There people would come and slide down that hill into the, either toward the highway or toward Shadowline Road.
Mm-hmm.
They'll tell you and your children, I hope, about their childhood more. So,
Do you think that your childhood was similar to theirs in terms of how hard you all had to work just to kind of get by? And do you think
Mark, that is a real good question. You see, they helped the family. They did.
Sure.
They helped with their own expenses, and that's what I did. I helped to make the family food, and helped to make things for the family to have income, and the boys did. They began golf caddies. See, the golf course was built. Alfred was vice president of the golf course, and was he was a lot responsible. Alfred Adams was really helped Watauga County in lots of ways. Being in a banking position, he could help with financing industry, so he helped to get Shadowline here. He helped to get a shoe plant. He helped to get IRC. He helped to get other industries. And also, now, the boys were in school so much, but then when at Christmas time or in summer, they even worked in the bank, and Alfred would give them jobs of going out collecting, but they still got paid for it, but the bank paid by the bank. And I can remember that, especially Tom worked in the Varsity shop, which was a good men's clothing shop, and he worked in that at winter break, and they became interested in golf by beginning with caddying, and they'd go early in the morning because the first one there would get the first job. Sure. And they developed some friendships, adult friendships. They had one lady that would, she had a cart, and if they weren't caddying, she'd let them ride in the cart some. Wow. And then you see, your dad, about your dad trying to make a decision whether to go in golf as a profession or whether teaching. Your dad had an interesting teaching job. He was a business teacher and a coach at Tusculum College, which is a school in Greenville, Tennessee. And June, your mother, of course, had a good teaching job. And I remember Austin wanted his dad, they had a big classroom, and he wanted his dad to bring him some books to put in the empty bookshelf.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. And then when he and June, your mother, lived there, we went one Christmas, I remember, one Christmas we spent there, and when we got, for that Christmas, your mother had made most every woman or some kind of a hand knit piece.
Wow.
And we had, I can remember one of our Christmases with them in Greenville, Tennessee. Then Austin, after teaching, he went into banking in Greenville. And then, of course, you see, he went with Northwestern, which was what his dad began with. And then he went with on to Wachovia and
Sure.
and but he and Sam, you see, went to Florida and stayed a year in trying to decide if they wanted to make golf as a profession.
Sure.
Sam chose it as a profession,
Sure.
and your dad then chose teaching and banking.
Certainly.
Tom then became. Let's see. I wonder what would be something else about us as a. Oh, I tell you, we really enjoyed each other as a family when the boys were like 5 and 7 and 9 or like that. Saturday nights we had a big couch and for then a big TV screen, and we would Saturday nights was family TV night, and we would all get on that big couch and watch. We saw that's where I think it makes sense with that's where we saw Elvis Presley.
Oh, really? Yeah.
On somebody's talent show, I think.
Yeah.
And so I have lots of happy memories of the boys' childhood. See, we built a new house where the post office is, and it was a comfortable house. It was 2 stories, and the boys had pony. We got a pony when Tom was 3, and that was old Bob.
Old Bob.
And I would bring children from school to ride old Bob, but they would have their friends. They were pretty popular for children to come and ride old Bob.
Sure.
And they also had pets. They had dogs. Of course, the dogs would get hit in the highway.
Mm-hmm.
And then that house was moved. It was a wooden house, and it was moved up a steep hill, a hillside. And I went to school. The movers told me, says, you don't have to move your dishes or anything out of the cabinet. Says, you come home, they'll be all right tonight. They taped up, just closed the doors good, and they put that house up on 4 wheels, and they moved it level. They moved it across that highway, up that hill, and we came home, and there that house was. And at one time, we had 2 houses up on the hill. And one time, Tom lived in one of them.
Oh, yeah?
And then one time, we had a trailer, and Tom, they lived in that.
Huh. I think we're about out of time on this tape. I'm sorry.
Oh.
So I'm sorry
I wish I
cut
had
off.
more time to tell about the boys' childhood.
We can do
They
that.
were happy days for me.
Certainly. We can do that on the next tape. No problem.
Oh,
You're doing wonderful.
wasn't it tiring?
It's not tiring for me. It's very interesting. I'm enjoying it. Are you having fun?
Yeah, but how would you classify it as being for interest to anybody else? Would it be interested to, the grandchildren, now like Catherine Daisy, would she ever be interested in that?
Of course. Yes, of course. Your experiences are much different from mine and hers.